not this, not the thinker, not this, not the five senses, and you're going in like this, and eventually even the not this will go, not this, not the not this either. It's just emptiness, which is filled with its own infinity of awareness and shakti of all the possibilities in all these worlds simultaneously. So emptiness itself is like, it's empty fullness, full emptiness. Avoid this void, so to say. These are just words, because what really matters is that we take the time through Manasya Yoga, to whatever level we're willing to take it, just to take some time to go into ourselves and discover for ourselves what has inspired these scriptures, what has inspired yoga, all these teachings, what it is to be alive, what it is to be consciousness, what powers come along with that, what powers come along with you, And this is, if consciousness goes all the way, it's God. God is all-pervasive being. If this concept, this word God is a placeholder for this concept of an all-pervasive, omnipresent, omnipotent being, there's nothing outside of that. There's nothing that negates it. There's nothing separate from it. This itself is included within that own awareness. It's because of the light of awareness that any of this can be experienced, can be seen. It's because of that infinite possibility of Shakti, dancing with the light of awareness, that all of this is seen. So, also then in the meditation with the concentration on an object, then according to the instructions of Dattatreya and Avadhut Gita, then once you dissolve the object of concentration, then you are absorbed completely in the Absolute itself. Like there's no concept or angle or like pocket of concept or idea or symbol even embodying the Absolute anymore. It's just clarity of awareness, and there's the Absolute. So this is very advanced stage in meditation, but this is, in case anyone is watching this, if this may be helpful to them. So you would practice with your object of meditation, and you're practicing with this consistently until the mind is just able to concentrate on this object at will, and it's very clear and very easy and everything, and then there's certain experience where you go into the object. Essentially, this is where they say the meditation, the meditator, the activity of meditation, and the object of meditation have dissolved into one, or they've been absorbed into one. There's no difference between the three anymore. So there's a certain level of absorption there now, or samadhi that's experienced at this level. So if you're meditating on a great master like Babaji, for example, or one of the Siddhas, or just a great master, no doubt, in your mind, and you've now achieved absorption with that master, already this is an incredibly high level of meditation, in which case these instructions would be probably useless, even because this master will give them to you right here, But anyways, in the scriptures it says, then now if you go even beyond this object of concentration, in which Dattatreya suggests steps, and then going into the subtleness of this, and the gross aspects of this object. So if it's like a master like Babaji or one of the Siddhas or something, then you might start to, instead of like concentrating on this form of them, then you might start to concentrate on their concentration, on their meditation, or on the grace, the force of the grace, or the force of their wisdom, their knowledge, their realization, something subtle that's like, it's something more subtle. And then eventually moving totally beyond, like behind even that object, all the way to the Absolute, where it's dissolved, and then you're absorbed in the Absolute itself. So this is some information on Manasya Yoga. And essence, it's just the practice of renouncing the relativities within the mind, if only temporarily for moments of practice in the day, and bringing the mind to focus on the absolute nature. Bringing mind to focus even in on itself, on consciousness. So one is like, who is thinking, or who believes this, or, who's listening to these thoughts, and things like this. It's an inquiry as into the very nature of mind, and in essence, just bringing consciousness back to itself. This is very simple. This is the simplicity itself as enlightenment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. We can engage ourselves in all sorts of complexities on the surface of mind, and that's the very nature of this particular frequency of mind that engages in that thing, where it's nitpicking and it's this versus that, or this angle or that angle, or like even opposing views occurring simultaneously. That's just a certain dimension of thought and consciousness that occurs in the mind. So that in itself, it can't get there to that other level. It's got to just be let go of, and then you settle into another level of consciousness, and then you can continue to let go even, and just settle into deeper and deeper levels of yourself and self-knowing and consciousness. And the only way that this is done really is with practice. One of the best and easiest ways for Manasya Yoga is the repetition of a mantra, because it can be engaged in constantly, continuously. And the mantra is the perfect symbol of this yoga, in which the meditator, the meditation, and the object of meditation are one every time, because the mantra embodies the vibration of these certain frequencies of enlightenment or mastery. And it's being chanted, so it's present every time there's this unity of the three becoming as one, And then the mantras in themselves, in their inherent power, then they tend to, as you get totally absorbed into mantra and meditation, there tends to be a point where you just fall through the mantra even, and go into the essence, which is beyond even like syllables or opposing sounds or opposing concepts or opposing mantras, So mantra is one of the most highly recommended practices of this time by the Siddhas and many of the saints. The repetition of japa, the divine mantras, of which the Siddhas and Babaji have recommended Om Namah Shivaya. That any mantra that's close to your heart, especially the mantra that is close to your heart and carries great power and faith for you, then have no doubt, as one repeats these mantras, they are working, and the experience then, the power of the mantra, because it's first coming and its power exists on this subtle dimension, in this energetic dimension. Sometimes there's not always, like an immediate experience, or sometimes there's not one and there's been one and you're like, is this even working, but it is always working powerfully and profoundly, these mantras. And so the more that they're done consistently and constantly, the more sensitized one becomes to that level and that dimension at which they're working. And there comes a point where the experiences with mantra are so profoundly amazing that you're like, wow, why isn't everybody just chanting mantras all the time, So, mantra practice is highly recommended for Manasya Yoga, and the same in meditation. It can be that object of the representing the supreme form of enlightenment, and then you just let go of everything else and keep going back to that mantra and remembering it as the affirmation of that supreme enlightenment rather than working towards it. That's another key of the Manasya Yoga, is the realization of the absolute reality of supreme enlightenment, and that the rest is relative, actually, is destructible and changeable and everything, and that thing is unmovable, that reality. So, that part too, that is especially in Manasya Yoga, is utilizing the mantra in that way as a symbol and affirmation of the enlightenment and the supreme ideal, rather than working towards it through japa. Then mantra itself is also very perfect of Manasya Yoga, because the meaning of it is like protection of the mind. There's these same symbols or syllables in there. Manasya and mantra. So mantra is engaging specifically in the mind because the mind has this tendency at this certain levels of consciousness on the surface of the ocean of consciousness where there's all the waves. It has this tendency to throw energy here and there and there and here and everywhere, and every little thought that's happening is a piece of energy that's going out. Though it may not seem significant, in the level of the mental body and the level of the subtle fields, there's a power and energy that's going with every thought. Some thoughts that are repeating themselves, that are consistent and habitual, that are like we're really getting stuck in, they're taking more energy out into that particular mode and region of the mind. So with mantra, you're protecting from that. Rather than the mind just spinning itself off randomly or unconsciously, or like even consciously in somewhere where we don't want to be, it's bringing it back, the energy, to where we do want to be, in that supreme focus of enlightenment and the cultivation of supreme consciousness of our own self. And so it's protecting the mind by consistently engaging in mantra, whether you're doing, formal sitting practice or not, wherever you're doing in your day, doing mantra in the background or whatever, there's a piece of your mind that is always like then gathered into that place, and it's storing and gathering energy into that one stream and focus. This has probably been a lot of information as it is on Manasya Yoga. It's also not all the information that can be put into there, because even as one will discover, as you look into the mind, consciousness, and the infinite possibilities and power of Shakti, that like information, all the information that's there, your mind has access to, if you can just quiet it and then attune to that station of whatever information it is that you're trying to come into. So infinity are the information, and especially in relation to the mind and what we can do with it. But this is a little bit, hopefully it's been helpful. Om Namah Shivaya.
Kali Kavacham Trelokya Vijayasya Kavachasya Rishihi Sivakam Chando Anushtup Devata Cha Adya Kali Prakirtita Maya Bijam Bijamiti Nama Shakti Dudaritaham Krim Kirakam Kamayao Siddha Vin Yoga Prakirtitaham Ring Madhyame Siddhaka Patu Srinkadi Vadanam Mama Vidyam